Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Welcome. Tonight on this side of the gate, we are being escorted on our journey by a wonderful group. Now, with a combined 40 plus years in the paranormal field, this is a dedicated group searching for the truth and helping both the living and the dead along the way. Please welcome, from the Keystone State Paranormal Society, based in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Dave Haney and Jim Wyrick. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure, Siska.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. I'm excited because last night I was a guest on their live show, and it was so much fun. I think we talked, what did we talk, guys? Hour and a half, maybe 2 hours?
Yeah, close to 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, and we just had a blast, and I think we could have gone another hour at least, you know,
Yeah.
because that's just it, you know, the paranormal is so exciting, and there's so many different levels to it, and once you really take off all of the, you know, arguing about it, and this is that, and this has to go in that category, this has to go in this, and just let it happen. It's just so enjoyable, and I really enjoyed the talk last night, and I really liked the viewers, and I wanted to thank everybody for listening, and tonight we get to do it on this way. So if you wouldn't mind, tell briefly a little bit about how each of you got started in wanting to study the paranormal. Do you mind?
Oh, I'll go seniors first. I'm the old. I've got some years on Dave. Dave is my son-in-law, by the way, and so I a little background on myself. I come from sort of a science background. I was involved in field of oncology at Hopkins for almost 40 years. And, worked with cancer research, and so, medicine and that science, and that's always appealed to me. As a child, I got my first paranormal experience probably when I was between 5 and 6 years old. As we had said last night, the house we lived in on Mississippi Avenue in Washington, D.C., had a resident energy that sort of watched over us as children. At the time, it was just a sister and myself, and but I remember the experiences quite vividly, and it was a common occurrence. So as I grew older, I've always been a bit of an avid reader. I started reading back then. One of my earliest books I can remember was Frank Edwards' Stranger Than Science, which came out in 1959. And I probably read it just as it came out. And it sort of opened my eyes to a lot of interesting things. And even from that age, I sort of felt... one of the gifts I've had in life is power of discernment. And it served me well, and it really lets me see directly at things. So I know when something has the ring of truth and when something is basically a facade. Mm-hmm. So from that basis, I always had an interest in the spiritual side of things, and grew up. And then, as I said last night as well, I read most of Hans Holzer's book. Back then, obviously, it was much more limited. There were really
Absolutely.
Shows that we have today. It certainly wasn't a hot topic, and I guess most people who had experiences were a little reluctant to talk about them because they didn't want people thinking they were, not centered.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And they were afraid that people were going to, call them crazy, and a lot of times they didn't understand it and they were so scared of it, so they just wanted to forget about it. So, and very similar to myself, we're both avid admirers of the way Hans Holzer did his cases. It was just very, matter of fact, and we're here for this. He used a limited amount of equipment, and he used trans mediums to help him. And we also discussed how it got away from that. And how about you, Dave? What got you started?
Well, as a young child, I had a maternal grandmother and my mother's sister who lived down in the deep woods down in Virginia, and we were all avid horror fans. It was nothing for us to go to see a double feature of horror movies that I probably shouldn't have been seeing at that age, just for entertainment. And so, of course, that I discovered ghosts and hauntings and things like this. Unfortunately, I was kind of a late bloomer into the actual paranormal field. I did not see my first apparition until my late teens. I had just come back from basic training, and my mother's father was the only one in my immediate family who had ever served in the military, and it was a big deal for me. I really wanted him to see me graduate basic training. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 weeks to the day before I left. And he passed away in my parents' house. So when I came back from basic training, before I went to my duty station, is when I saw his spirit, and it was very comforting. It was I got the feeling that he was letting me know that even though he physically was gone, he knew what I had done, and he was there and watched me, and it really calmed my soul. And after that, I started reading, again, any book I could find. Didn't really talk about it. As Jim said, people, they kick you out of the Army for that kind of stuff. But,
yes, they do.
But what really made everything happen was when I got married, and my wife and I had invited Jim and his wife over to our apartment. We lived a mile or two away from them. And I guess he saw my books on my bookshelf. So that was on a Monday. Wednesday night, Jim calls me and says, International Ghost Hunter Society is having a convention in Gettysburg this weekend. Would you like to go? And I was like, absolutely. And he said, good, because I've already bought tickets.
Nice.
So we went, and we had no equipment. It was just him and I. We didn't know what we were walking into. We didn't know if this was going to be like some kind of Star Trek convention where people dressed up or what was going to happen. But within the first few hours, we met people from all walks of life, business, law enforcement, government, everything.
Right.
And the one guy that we first struck up a conversation with, a gentleman by the name of Davey Weaver, who was a historical carpenter over just north of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And we got to talking and struck a friendship with him. He introduced us to Dr. Dave and Dr. Sharon, who created the International Ghost Hunter Society. And by the end of that first day, they had invited us to do a private investigation of a private residence with them, and here we are, complete strangers, and they took us right in and showed us the ropes, and it's just been gangbusters since then.
Ever since. And you guys, now, how long has the society been together year-wise? I mean, as far as you and the rest of your group?
I guess we really only merged as PS.
The past 3 or 4 years, we created a actual group that.
Right. But you've been doing it together, for a lot longer doing that. And it's so great that you guys are so close together that you can kind of constantly be on this, and talk about it and, go over your evidence and go over your things. But before we go further, this is going to surprise Dave a little bit here. You had asked me last night about the story you just told about seeing him. And I answered you with one of mine, basically answering for everybody the differences between seeing someone who is still caught in their death state that had not crossed and someone who was a visitation in spirit and coming back for special occasions and, things like that. And my mother myself visited me the night before I went into basic training. It's a big deal. There's a lot of energy. And, if they're not there for that, I can tell you right now, they're there at weddings, they're there at anniversaries and birthday parties. When you connect in that love energy, they're there, whether you know it or not, whether you see them or not. But you had said something to me, and I didn't want you to think I missed that last night. I just wanted to think about it a little. And my question to you was, you said that you felt selfish in not taking that opportunity to help him cross. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. My question to you is, what made you think he needed to cross and not coming back as a visitation? And he was already crossed. That was my question to you. And I wanted to think about that for a little bit before I answered, because it was an important question.
Right. I guess, I mean, at the time, I know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed, without having any knowledge and any kind of experience in the field, that if they were there, it's because something involved with them or something that they were wrapped up in wasn't allowing them to go where they needed to go.
Right.
Looking back now, it's entirely possible that he had gone to where he was meant to be, but made that special trip back to let me know that he saw I wanted him to see.
Well, I wanted to tell you now because I wanted to be sure, because with all the electronics and everything else and everything, all the energy from everybody coming in that was commenting, I needed to be clear-headed when I said this to you. It was absolutely a visitation. Because when you said it, that was the energy I was getting from it. He wasn't stuck, so there's no reason to feel bad. He came back to let you know he was there and he supported you and he knew it was important to you. And that has to do with a lot of energy. So don't worry. He's good to go.
It's actually very comforting. It's very comforting.
And I just wanted to be sure of that because I don't take messages like that lightly. Do you know what I mean? I needed to think on it and double check. Because like I said, there's a lot of energy coming in with comments and just people, just energy all over the place. But that was my absolute feeling when you told me that story. So there you go. And that's what this is about. To all the listeners out there, I want to tell you a little bit about what I know about these guys. A good friend of mine, Tammy, she's a fantastic psychic medium, and she had been watching. They do on your Paranormal Live. It's a different channel than it's a different page than your KSPS page. Is that correct?
Yeah, we, they've been their Facebook page has been around quite a few longer than ours. So while we're just about to crest the 400 follower mark, they're well into 65,000.
Right. So you jump on theirs, and I think what nights is that?
It's every other Thursday.
Every other Thursday.
We'll do it 2 weeks from last night. Will be that Facebook Live show again.
Right.
And then the Thursdays we're not doing that. We go through their internet radio and do a 1 hour live show as well.
Fantastic. So if you want to connect in with these guys, and I totally suggest you do, check in at those times, get into the Paranormal Live Facebook page, get on the KSPS Facebook page so you can connect in and see a lot, because they put up a lot of EVPs. They do a lot of different stuff. There's always something going on, announcements for things going on in the area. And it's a great show. And it's a lot of great viewers where you can have, interaction with them as well. And again, before we go further, I want to tell the viewers about something absolutely beautiful that happened last night. And you guys might not even realize it. And that's why I'm telling everybody to get on there, because just like the convention you spoke about, and just like any other group that you get involved with in this, it's so fantastic to talk to like-minded people who are just over all the drama. And just let's get down to it. This is actually there's a lot of cool things if you just let it happen, and then talk about it. It's great. Now, you had asked me the question, and I answered the one we just talked about my mother visiting me in her death state and staying with me a while until I basically, Mom, I'm going to be okay. You got to cross over. I don't want you to get stuck. I mean, we had that conversation, and I did it several times until I finally felt she'd listened. And I didn't see her for a while, and I always wondered, And then years later, the night before, I went into basic training. So we're going to say so it's about 7 years later. I hadn't seen her. And then the night before I went into basic training, she appeared to me. And she was much better. She was no longer sick. She was beautiful. She looked like she was dressed differently. She was no longer in her hospital gown, So we described the differential, because that was also one of mine about what have I learned from the best lessons I've ever learned from the dead, was basically there seems to be a healing that goes on. Mm-hmm. And while I listened to it the second time and got to read the comments, the most beautiful thing happened. All of your viewers were putting up, that happened to me. I saw my mother before, and then I saw her after, or my father, or my grandfather, or other people. And they just one after the other, and it was absolutely beautiful. So there was a group of people coming in and going, that happened to me just like that. And that's true. It seems like once they go over, all their earthly burdens are gone, and they heal. They might have had a limp before, or they were sick, or, whatever, and they appear at a younger age. I think they can choose that. I'm not sure, but I've seen both. I think they come to you as you can best recognize them, I think. That makes a lot of sense, But there you go. So that was something really cool that happened last night. Now, you guys do an awful lot of battlefield. Now, I wanted to ask you, is it because you're drawn to battlefields for something personal, or is it just because you're right in the heart of so many famous battlefields where you are in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Although, like I said, my interest in the history and Civil War and just feel connected. When I get to areas and grounds where these significant events occurred with me in a very special way. Mm-hmm. And
now, see, I think it started as one and became the other. I think it's as we're new at this, we're still trying to get our feet wet and see exactly what we're supposed to be doing, as if there's a script for these things. So we went to what was familiar, what was quite honestly free. And then once we had a few times at that site, at that battlefield under our belt, and we started developing, I guess we'd say kinship almost with certain energies.
Yeah.
We knew if we went to Triangle Field, we were going to interact with something. Mm-hmm. He knew if we went to the Irish Monument, played that music, we would get something. If we went to with Jim's knowledge of the history, he would get something, and it just became more the other type, not just well, it's here, so let's do it. It became we got to keep coming back because we feel we still have more to tell us, and they feel comfortable enough that they want to interact with us on a consistent basis. So it's almost like our duty to go and get their message for them and put it out for them.
Makes perfect sense. And plus, I think you're right about the kinship, because they start recognizing, and obviously familiar, and again, it depends on what type of ghost you're dealing with, because you could be dealing with somebody who's so erratic he doesn't even know the space he's in, but then you can have some that are a little calmer, and a little bit more able to communicate, and maybe not be in such an erratic state. Their energy is like all over the place. They're a little calmer and they can listen. They're going to recognize you. And they're also going to recognize your intent, that you're kind. You're not there to just waste their energy. You said something last night, Dave, that I just thought was really profound. It had something to do with basically you were going in there and not wasting their energy and letting them know that, and not having a lot of equipment first and just kind of feeling everything before you kind of get a feel for it. Can you talk about that a little bit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. As everyone who's ever seen our clips and seen our shows and listened to our shows, we have a lot of gadgets and a lot of tech that we use on investigations, a lot more than most groups that we're familiar with. But that being said, we do not use those gadgets and tech as a means to hold an investigation. We use those as a means to enhance the investigation. Our investigations are based upon going and knowing the history of that investigation, so that we know what we're looking for. We know we can expect what we may be interacting with, because we don't want to go into a place, especially if it's like a private residence or something. We don't want to go in not knowing what could be there, because honestly, for people in our field, that could be dangerous.
Yep.
But we like to know what we're walking into. But we go in first. The first thing Jim does is pull out his divining rods, and the first thing I do is just walk through. And I just walk, and I'll look down this corridor or up this set of stairs or into this room, and I'll see what I feel. Okay, I think I can walk past this room, but I need to go up the stairs and check out that room on the right.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something that says to go up there. Jim will take his divining rods, and he'll just let them walk him higher place. And once we've done that, we'll consult with each other and be like, okay, look, what did your divining rods say? Because I felt some kind of energy up on the second floor in that room on the right. And he'll say, hey, my rods led me right there. Mm-hmm. And then he'll say, this room over here on the right on this main level, it walked me right past. There's nothing in there. And I'll say, I walked right past it. And that's where we know. Now we can set up tech. We can set up our cameras. We can set up the tools that we have, such as EM pumps, infrasonic noise generators, to help add energy to the location to give them so they can give us the message they want to give out.
A neat story, Cisco, with the divining rods. A number of years ago, we had the opportunity, I think it's still the only group that ever went in, the jail here at Chambers. We are the oldest jail in Pennsylvania. We predate Eastern Penitentiary in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And anyhow, and they have a dungeon area, and they did capital punishment here. We had gallows. They moved it around in the courtyard, so it wasn't in a permanent place, but it was in the courtyard. Time we're in there, we really hadn't been through it. The local historic society here had arranged for ladies who had written The Ghost of Franklin County to be with us. One was a psychic. The other was a
retired FBI profiler.
Yeah, retired FBI profiler. So they're walking through it with us. Anyhow, I'm in the dungeon area with my divining rods, and I come out of the dungeon, walking down this high hallway, and the rods are really leading me, and it finally takes me to this door. They do a short right bend step. So I go out, and the guy who's accompanying us, I say, well, what's in this room? And he says, well, we just use it for storage now, but I can open it. And I said, would you? So as he opened it, I go in the room. The rods take me right in, and at the end of the room, there's a few steps leading up into the courthouse. Courtyard. And so the guy from the Historical Society says, oh, my gosh. And I said, what is it? He said, you just walked dead man's walk.
Oh, my.
That was the exact path that the condemned would take from their cell out to the courtyard for their hands.
Yeah, and of course we had no prior knowledge of that or anything. Mm. And here the rods just took me right there, and it was sharp. I mean, those rods were leading me and making a sharp right and all that. So I said, wow. I said, you can see the energies have ingrained into that.
Absolutely. And that's not the first time I've heard of divining rods or dowsing rods being used for paranormal investigation. In fact, that's one of Carol Nesbitt, Mark Nesbitt's wife from Gettysburg, her favorite thing to use. And I totally agree, because sometimes all we need is just a little bit of something to confirm what we're feeling already. Especially if you're in an erratic energy. I know I do. That's so much. Any kind of prison, jail, hospital, battlefield of any kind. In pretty much anywhere, because on every piece of land something has happened. So it helps you to just get a little bit of direction and a little bit of solidarity with what you're feeling already. I think that's an amazing story. It's an amazing story.
Oh, yeah, neat place.
Yeah. And talk about amazing stories. Now, last night I asked you both, and if you wouldn't mind to repeat it again, I asked, out of all this time, and things that you've learned and things that have happened since you've been investigating, what's the most profound experience that you've had? And you both told me some great ones. And it also, if you listen to this, listeners, I want you to think about energy. We were talking a lot about energy last night. I said that's one of the most misunderstood things because we tend to think it's very limited, and it's not. Their energy can connect into an energy, like say it's a depressed energy. They were depressed, and someone in that room is depressed. They're going to be drawn to it, or if somebody's happy, or if somebody has lost a child, and that ghost has also lost a child. They connect into it, as well as, like I said, your intent and what you're doing there. So if you don't mind telling us again, what was your most profound thing?
I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to switcheroo on you. Not that what I told you this night wasn't significant and memorable. I think one that might even trump that is something Dave and I experienced together. And this about a year ago, or so it was a year and a half ago at the Bel Air House. Yeah, about a year and a half ago at the Bel Air House in Bel Air, Ohio. It's across the river from Moundsville, West Virginia. The Ohio River separates those two states right there. And Bel Air House, it's pretty well documented. Most of the big groups have been there. The owner, Kristen Lee, who herself is a sensitive and psychic, she actually, in her stories, she actually felt her life was threatened and attacked by a dark energy in the house. And there are a lot of dark energies. I don't mean to minimize that, but this is a white energy. And we were there, and earlier, there's a home right next door to where the Bel Air House. It's been abandoned for a couple years. And there was a very bad event that had occurred there where a husband and his wife were basically adopting children, and then were basically...
The husband was sexually abusing them.
Well, he was photographing it, and it was, the child pornography. They were putting it out on the air.
Oh, no.
And the son, they had a son who was a teenager, and he shot the father. With a gun, and when the police came, anyhow, he did not kill his father. He shot him in the chest, and so they quickly discovered what had been going on. So this house is basically sealed up, and we were actually invited to go into it. Well, the Holy Spirit told me point blank, I could not enter the house and soil myself. And I listened to the Holy Spirit, so I did not go. And that's, normally I'd be the first one jumping in a situation like that, but no, it told me no. Dave went with two other guys we were with, and they weren't there but a short while. We had them sort of monitored. Dave got violently ill. And they had the salts for cleansing and everything on the porch of the Bel Air House. They come in, and Dave is so sick, he's
literally vomiting.
He's like projectile vomiting.
Oh, my.
He's that sick. And so anyhow, once they get calmed down, one of the gals was with us, one of the gentlemen who'd gone in the house, and myself, we go upstairs, and there was a little girl named Emily who we think was about 5 years old when she drowned in the Ohio River.
Oh.
And her sister was there at the house. And we go up there, and she was pure light and love. And we're watching her on a XCAM SLS. And you can see it's a child, and she's hugging. Mike Simpson was with us. She's hugging Mike, and I'm filming this, and he's going, she's on, like stroking my side of my face, and you could see this. I mean, and I could tell him where she was on him at the time, and he's saying, oh yeah, he's verifying that. And we were all feeling great, just energy, joy, love, and she's saying, I love you, family, all these beautiful things coming through. And we're using an EM pump to give energy. And this session runs about 30, 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Mike says to Emily, would you go downstairs and comfort Dave? He's feeling sick. Dave's down at the communication center.
And I'm watching everything on the DVR cameras. And as Mike says that, her Emily's stick figure goes off. She's gone. And then I see on the DVR camera, shooting down the hallway, what looks like a floating light bulb. It is so bright it has a shadow on the wall. And and then it turns and comes downstairs, and I look up and I don't see anything. And I look back on the camera, it's not there. Then I see on the other camera in the room behind me, it's there. I turn around and look, and I don't see anything. And I'm like, what is going on? And the next thing I feel, it's as if I feel stroke the left side of my face, and I got this overwhelming peace as if I had been away at war and just came back and my 3 daughters ran up and hugged me. That's how beautiful.
And the nausea and everything went away immediately.
Immediately, the migraine is gone, the nausea, everything.
Isn't that amazing? This little girl.
Yeah, it was pure light and love. And then given the fact that the Bel Air house is sort of noted for these negative energies, and here's this pure white light. Yeah. And we had, that same evening, we were emotionally drained from it, obviously. We rested a or so, and then we tried to connect Emily again.
And I said, somebody else has got to watch Command Center. I've got to go be part of this. We went up, and we went another 45 minutes with her in the room, holding my hand. And you can see her stick figure. I would put my arm out, and you could see her stick figure reach for it.
Wow.
And at one point I said, okay, Emily, I need to go back downstairs, but you could go next to Gigi, who was another of the investigators with us, give you all the love and attention you need. And immediately her stick figure put her arm down and disappeared from next to me and appeared right next to hers.
Amazing.
And my God, she's here with me,
Right.
And we had 2 amazing sessions with Emily. And the neat part is, I don't know why her spirit was there, but it hasn't been detected since.
Yeah. Do you think that she crossed?
I think she did. I think she needed to know, to sort of reciprocate with that whole love. And the high emotion energy that all of us felt. I mean, there were 6 of us there that we all felt, Emily, and it persisted. The euphoria and good feelings persisted. We left. We actually shed tears the next day.
We're packing up to leave the next day. I went up to that room and I said, Emily, I'm sorry I have to go, but I'll come back. And if you're here, I'd love to see you again. And it was you had tears in your eyes. It was like you were leaving one of your own children behind.
Right. And then to think, that she's there in that house. A lot of times I have people ask me, do spirits that are in the same house know that each other are there? Well, in some cases, yes, and in a lot of cases, no. They don't interact with each other, but obviously the higher vibrational, like Emily, will stay away from the negative, and hide or go off. And, I was actually on a case once where we were helping a young girl like that. She was more 8 to 9-ish. And she was just trying to find a way to connect into that love, as you said, because she had been just so traumatically, her death was traumatic. She was looking for her parents, of course, and, everybody got her to finally understand that they weren't there. And we were trying to connect her into that love energy, as you did. And basically she said, hurry up because he's coming. Hurry up, he's coming. And, basically it was something else that had a stronger, more negative energy and was trying to keep a lot of these souls that were trapped in that area under control, So there's a lot of that going on. I'm so glad you guys connected in with her. What a beautiful story. That's very cool. That is very profound, yes.
What you just said, that is absolutely spot on. What the most scariest thing, at least for me, that's ever happened to me was this last time we were at the Keeley Mansion, and it fits right into with what you just said about the spirits not knowing about each other.
Mm-hmm.
We've set up a Sololex camera down in the basement of the Keeley Mansion, and there was a negative dark energy in this back area of this room, and Janet, our medium, was interacting with Jim on the messages and saying, whatever is back there, the gentleman that's back there is huge, and his figure on the SLS camera, literally the entire screen, he was massive. And he said he is intimidated by Dave, and he doesn't like it, so he's getting angry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back there, and I was pushed and scratched, which we did have pictures of. But in the room where Jim was, holding the SLS, was a little boy in the corner, and it was playing and jumping and dancing, having fun. And I do not think that the man and the little boy were aware of each other at all.
Right.
But the one spirit that Jim interacted with, what was her name? The nanny?
Oh, yeah, the nanny. Anna. Was it Anna?
Anna,
yeah.
She would come down to check on the little boy. Now, the man was aware of her and didn't like her leaving the attic area where she normally was,
mm-hmm.
but he's not aware of the little boy.
Yeah,
So,
she was the nanny, and she would come down from the attic into the basement. While we were there, we would see her spirit emerge
next to the
to
little boy.
check on the little boy and make sure he was okay. And she was amazing. We had a long session with her, and she was just she was brilliant. She was well educated. She knew music and played music for the children. She did not like men, but she accepted me.
Yeah.
And so I was there with a couple of the other ladies, and we had just an amazing session with her. I was operating the ghost box and, doing the sort of doing the questioning and stuff. So she was totally tolerant of me, but she didn't like the other guys up there.
No, she wouldn't interact at all while I was up there. I think maybe because I had the interaction with the man in the basement, that maybe she thought I was by him.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's one of those questions that just bring, you get a little answer and then there's, 100 more questions. It's what I call the paranormal onion. The more you peel it, the more layers you're going to get. It's a moving target. But what you guys found out is basically, like you said, that's so many people cannot understand why. It's how something can be in the house and not be aware. And I got one that'll trump you. If they, trump that thought. Basically, if it's got that kind of power to be causing that much stuff and control and doesn't want to leave, and you connect into it and you're going there to help it, it usually knows you're coming before you get there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're spot on. We actually, last time we did Downs, which was, I think, July of last year, the prison, we had done a Phasma box session at my sister's house, which has a number of spirits in it. They've been, they're actually very whimsical and comical, but they don't reveal a lot about themselves. And so we were in a session before we went to Moundsville, and anyhow, during that session, basically the spirit said they knew we were coming and they would be ready.
Isn't that amazing? And it's a little scary, too.
Yeah, no, and they were. That
Our equipment.
Yeah.
They actually did. They broke a piece of equipment tonight.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just it. That's all about, the energy connecting in. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, too, because, that major question when, somebody's having some activity in the house, whatever it may be. And I know you guys are on this same frequency when we're talking about this, is just because you see a little something doesn't mean all of a sudden it's a big thing. It could be anything at this point. It could be, maybe you have an ability that you're not grounding, you're not controlling it well, and, you're holding it back and it's found a way to manifest itself. So, that's PK. and a little poltergeist activity. Usually happens with teenagers, but not all the time. I've had a couple, older ladies in the past couple of years that they didn't even realize it. When they got upset and more scared, more things would happen, which would make them more upset and more scared. So, I mean, it's one of those. Then you have, just your regular human ghost who is trying to get your attention, and because of all the television shows and everything else that is turning everything into a demon, or it's this or it's that, right away people panic and think it's a lot more than it very well could be. That's why you have people that know what they're doing. You have a paranormal investigation group such as, you guys, and then they have a couple of sensitives with them, whatever sensitivity that may be, whether it be psychic, transmedium, medium, psychic medium. There's so many different flavors, because you need a little bit of everything. You need the science, you need the feeling, you need the heart, and you need the common sense to try to unravel all of this. Because to just go in with, say, your cameras without thinking anything, and you're just there just trying to record, and you get someone, say an EVP, that says, help me, clear as day, help me. And then you might get an apparition that broke through your laser grid or something along those lines. And then you talk to the homeowners, and the homeowner says, well, before we bought it, we heard that, a farmer had this house and he was killed out by the tractor, and he used to always go in and out the back door, and the back door opens and closes. So we think it's Harry. So we call him Harry. And the little girl we see, we found out that somebody died here, scarlet fever, and, her name was Mary. So we call her Mary. Now, you get you guys and the equipment and the sensitives and the mediums, and everybody uses all their gifts and then talks about it and tries to figure out everything that's going on. You can decipher the fact that, nope, Harry crossed. That's not Harry coming in the back door. And the little girl you're talking to, that's not a little girl at all. That's an entity that has the ability to manifest in a different way. There's so many layers to this. It's like not one answer all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, that's an interest would have alluded to, is oftentimes the presentations on people are perceiving. We had a case a number of years ago we were referred to as a lady living in Baltimore City, and where she lived was literally a couple blocks from where the Baltimore massacre occurred during the Civil War. It was like week or two after the firing on Fort Sumter, and they were bringing Massachusetts troops through the streets of Baltimore. They had to park off of one line and walk to another. And, of course, Baltimore was very pro-Southern. And so the crowd gathered, started throwing things at the soldiers, and they fired back. A number of people were killed. It was small numbers. 4 or 5 people were killed. A number were wounded. They referred to it as the Baltimore Massacre. So this woman's house was right down there in that vicinity. So she's telling us her and her daughter-in-law are seeing this object in their kitchen, and it's like red glowing eyes, and they're both thinking demonic. Now, the woman in the house, she'd grown up with ghosts, and she was fine with it. This was unsettling to her. And so, come to find out, we made contact. We determined, there's energies there, quite a few. Made contact with them. Come to find out, the spirits loved the lady who owned the house. They did not like her daughter-in-law and didn't trust her. And so they were actually presenting themselves in an ominous fashion the daughter-in-law way.
Right.
And so, we're basically saying, gee, how well do you know your daughter-in-law?
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? But see, that's it. They can read your intent. They know what you're all about. The
daughter-in-law was evidently an alcoholic and had been stealing from her, unbeknownst.
Wow.
And so they scared her out of the house, and then they just, they went back to their routine ghost, and so the woman perfectly fine, and that was the end of that. But it was really interesting that we could from the get-go, we could sense and pick up on the affinity that the spirits had for the lady, and we told her that they were protecting her. They would not let any harm to her.
Isn't that amazing? But see, that's the unraveling. It's like getting you have a haunted house and you've got more than one spirit in it, and you might have somebody with abilities that's holding them back and causing some of their own stuff, because we now know that can happen. There's no doubt, Enfield poltergeist, name them all, But you've got that, and it's almost like, have you ever seen Grandma's old basket of yarn, and she's got all those little pieces, and she's got all the balls of yarn rolled up, and they're all in the basket, and they're all tangled up together. You basically, as a group, sensitives and all, have to come in and unravel all of that and explain, okay, this one is this one is this is what's happening here. It's not necessarily someone that died in that house. It could be somebody that died in a car accident a couple of miles down and was just attracted by the light of the other spirits in that house. It's basically like, this sounds silly, but bear with me. I used to live in very rural Alabama, and there was probably 15 acres of woods on one side and 20 in the back, and when you went in my back porch, I mean dark. You had the stars, that's about it. And you could turn on that porch light and just watch, and in seconds, that porch light would be covered in all kind of bugs. And each bug that was attracted, however different they weren't even aware of the other ones that were there. The moths, you've got the flies, you have mosquitoes, whatever it was. They're not aware of each other. They're just attracted to that light and trying to get to it for whatever reason that they're drawn. That's what it's like when you have someone with an ability and they can see you. They're drawn to you. They can follow you. They can come to your home. They can be in the home, whatever. And then the more light that gets there, the more spirits that are there, it will also draw other spirits that are wandering, And they don't necessarily have to have died in that house or on that property or in a home that was there before. And that, it happens. It happens all the time. It's like throwing on a porch light. Do you agree?
Oh, no, yeah. We, Chris, Bel Air House. We've seen it because we've been at Bel Air House quite a few times, and when she's there, it's almost like turning the light on, and they're coming to talk to her. And they may have absolutely no association with that house. They just know that someone is there who they can communicate with, and they come from all over. Mm-hmm. We were even. We haven't, we don't reveal the details, but this was, we were up there, and it was her, Mike Simpson, and myself, and all of a sudden we had come through. It was a local person who had supposedly committed suicide in the area, and as it turned out, he hooked right up. There was someone neither Mike or I knew the area, so we weren't familiar with what had happened. Kristen knew it, and this individual actually had basically revealed to her that it wasn't suicide, that he'd actually been murdered, and he named his murderer.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. Now you could tell. I could tell the reaction from Kristen, and interestingly enough, while this guy is there wanting to get out the correct information, the area was also the scene of a mining disaster, and we had an old German miner there in the other side of the basement wanting to tell us his story. So we were getting ping-ponged back and forth.
Wow.
By the two entities who each were very insistent on telling their story.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it was really Mike and I are just there recording it, and we're just like, wow, that was all Kristen. That was them coming through because they knew that she could recognize them and tell their story, and
right.
They wanted it.
And sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes they don't know what they need because, you guys are very familiar with going up into the battlefields, and we know. Now, for the listeners, if you listen to this show, you've heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating. When you walk up into a battlefield, it's basically a potpourri of different kind of ghosts. You've got your residual, because there was so much energy that happened there. Let's say Gettysburg, any field in Gettysburg, any place in Gettysburg. There was so much energy that's just released. Now, you know, too, that when, just getting shot, we found out through Mark Nesbitt, and I don't know if you guys heard this, but I found this fascinating, that even getting a bone broken, it sets off different energies into the atmosphere around it. So if you imagine just a bone being broken can change the energy around it, what a human person dying can do, just to the energy. So you've got all that. You've got your residual, you've got your imprints, if you want to call it that are non-intelligent. There's no ghost there. It's just something that replays because of this massive amount of energy. Then you've got your ghosts who are just repeating over and over. They're caught in a loop, they're stuck there, and they're just repeating their last moments or, over and over and over again. And they're intelligent, but it's harder to get their attention because they're just so stuck up into this energy, it's harder to get them out of it. Then you've got the ones who don't even realize that they're dead. They're intelligent, but they have no idea they're dead. They're going through their moments, but they're not stuck in a repeat. They're there, and they don't know. Every once in a while, it seems the veil thins, and they kind of see a little bit of now. Every once in a while, just like we see them every once in a while, they see us every once in a while. But they just can't put it together, and they have no clue they're dead. And it just goes on and on and on, and every kind of personality from, different human beings all have different personalities. And quite frankly, if you're a nice person in life and you're all together, and you're a ghost, you're probably all together there. But if you were a real jerk in life, you're probably going to be a jerk when you're a ghost too.
Been there for years.
Yep, absolutely.
So you've got so much, but you've got so much all at once. And to walk up into that, boy, you want to talk about a basket of tangled yarn. So it takes so much. And Dave, I wanted to ask you, here's one story for the listeners here's how a ghost can be misunderstood in their actions. They might be doing something for attention or something that they can do to try to show you or stop you or do something else. Tell us a little bit what happened to you. I believe it was in Gettysburg, was it not?
It was. We're 15 years ago now, something like that. In Triangular Field, and we had run into a paranormal group from Berks County, Pennsylvania, and they were in the wooded area with Jim at the back end of Triangular Field, and I was sitting right at the wood line, and I'm snapping some photos into the field, and I was picking up nothing but ecto. I mean, it was like a fog.
Mm-hmm.
So I called for Jim, come up here, look at, and so Jim came out, and we were standing maybe 6 to 8 feet apart, and I was describing to him what was going on, and something on my left shoulder, and shoved me to the ground, 6'2", 255 pounds, shoved me to the ground with force that I literally went parallel to the ground before I hit it.
Mm.
And my eyes got real big, and I asked Jim.
And I witnessed him go into the ground.
And I asked if he had his camera on, which unfortunately he didn't. But he did. Just moments prior to that event, he and the gentleman from Berks County in the woods in the backside of Triangular Field had gotten a photo of a full apparition of a Union officer. So, fast forward about 5 years, and our friend Janet Jones comes in from Carson City, Nevada, and immediately we take her to Gettysburg. We have told her none of the stories of what we encountered in Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to Triangular Field, she walks away from us at a very quick pace and immediately walks to where I had gotten thrown to the ground, stops, closes her eyes as if she's listening for something, and then she turns to me and she says, "He was not trying to harm you. He didn't mean to scare you. he thought you were one of his soldiers, and he was pushing you down out of the way of fire.
Isn't that amazing?
And it amazed me because to that point, I was really, really skeptical about mediums and psychics, and because you haven't seen people. It's so easy to fake. They gather evidence, all this stuff in their ear, telling them what to say. But there was no way she'd have known that.
Right. That's amazing. And see, that's why I had you say that, because it can be so misunderstood for that second. And that's why I described, too, that sometimes it seems, because myself going and speaking to them and asking them, do you ever see things change? Are you wondering why people are speaking different or dressing different, or you see these buildings go up and down, And they told me basically, yes. And that's why they stayed next to this huge witness tree and right there by the hedgerow, right before, it's right there by the high school. They stayed there because they said, one of them actually touched the tree, said, this almost stays the same, and they were sitting in the tree.
This is a good, just to let you know, Cisco, we've got on Dave's cell phone, we've got the newest member of our Haley Eisenhart's on the phone, and
Great.
She is the audience. Haley, her mother had been watching the show, and evidently had told her daughter, hey, you got to, check out these guys. And we made contact, and Haley actually assisted on a couple of stations we had. She was keyed in by our live broadcast and getting her sensations and feelings, whatnot, and then participating in that venue. And then here, not too long ago, we took her on the first investigation with us at the Keeley Mansion, and she had a really neat time. And as I previously said, she's been working with her good Janet Jones to sort of key in on her craft and sort of just reinforce her. Haley, you don't know this, but Cisco had told us earlier that a good friend of hers who's also gifted is named Tammy. It's Knighton. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
Tammy Knighton. So we're going to get you in touch with her as well.
Awesome.
And she particularly works with upcoming gifted individuals, and she can also assist you. So without me running my mouth anymore, we've got Cisco. Cisco's on the one phone, and this is our friend. So, Cisco, I'll let you ask Haley a few questions and get her in the conversation.
Well, welcome, Haley. Welcome to this side of the gate, darling. We're in good company tonight, are we not?
Oh, we are. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Oh, it's great to talk to you, too. I was reading your comments last night, and when they told me that you were going to come in, I said, fantastic. I just connected right in with you. And I'm going to tell you something, as you get more into this, and I'm sure you know this already, but these things don't happen by accident, You meet them. Tammy hooked me up with them. Now I'm going to hook you up with Tammy. I mean, it's just so cool, and it really does help each one of us get further into understanding this wonderful subject. So do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, dear?
Let me see. I'm 30 now. Since I can remember, I've been sensing things around me, seeing, smelling, feeling, which I guess is a clairsentient type ability. I know things that I've been. My first experience that I actually vocalized was right around the time I had started talking, actually, so I was under 2 years old. And I was just staring out my bedroom window, and my mom asked me what I was looking at, and I said there was a girl in the yard, and I was looking at her, a little Indian girl. And she said, what's she doing? I said, she's looking at me. And she just grew with me. I was always a little confused as to what she was, and I'm not still quite sure. I've heard your guy, I've also heard connected to the land, but I've always been connected to her. People in the house, lost loved ones in the I would go someplace, meet someone new, know things. Just weird little things like that. I've had a lot of, my abilities are kind of scattered, and I'm not entirely focused on just, like, being a psychic per se, or, like, the mediumship. But I also have, I'm a visionary artist. I get my inspiration from somewhere else. I don't know where it is. I call it dreamland. There's a lot of things that just are starting to make sense right now for me as I'm into this and finally being open to it. And like you said, I'm meeting people. Like, I think the universe recognizes that I'm ready to do that, and it's providing it, which is, I'm a firm believer in that. That's just how it works.
It is, and it's also very, we were talking about it last night, very Native American, where it's basically, no matter what spirituality you look at, that's in there. It's like when you're ready to handle it, that's when it comes. Most psychic mediums and, people with gifts like that, they're very powerful as a child, and then it kind of stops a little, depending on the people around you helping you through, but usually kind of shuts down a little, and then all of a sudden, between like 25 and 30, just bam, and, it just wide open again. And it's almost letting you grow up a little so you can handle what's happening. And that makes perfect sense.
I agree with that so much, because had I not gone through the things and done the things and focused on the things that I did, I would not be able to do this as well. I come from a medical background. I was an EMT at 17 years old and working EMT, working emergency. All of that, I can actually feel now, because I have felt living people. I feel their energies as much as I feel with the past. I feel all energies. It's not just people who have heard it. It's all people. So feeling that, I now, in a sense, can feel spirit in a different way. I can communicate as to, like, what happened to them. I feel things that to me feel like hypovolemic shock, or, kidney something, chest something. I get that sometimes. And I don't think I would get that had I not have felt that off of, the people. It's just weird how it all ties together.
Makes so much sense. Makes so much sense. We have a saying, I once had an elder tell me, because I'm an herbalist, and I'm very into the whole herbal thing, and I won't go into my whole story, but I got bit by brown recluse.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
I've been in my garden. I've putting people on turmeric for 20 years.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it.
I know.
Yeah. And I mean, with my case, it was more, I was a single mom raising two boys, and, you take care of your kids first. And I'm like, well, there's none left over for me. I'm just going to figure out how to fix it myself, But I had an elder tell me one time, he said, well, basically, you're a healer. You're a healer with words, because I'm a communicator, and I would go in and I would help a lot of vets, get through a lot of their stuff and help them cope, PTSD and things like that. And just listen and then talk. And basically, because I was a soldier too, they would listen to what I had to say, because they were my brothers, basically. And the elder looked at me and said, well, this is it. You're so good at this because you've broken your leg. And I said, what do you mean? I've never broken my leg. And he goes, no. He said, well, my native name is Soaring Eagle. He said, Soaring Eagle, look at me. You have broken your leg. And I said, okay, I'm really trying to understand. You've got to give that to me, because I didn't quite understand. He said, the best way to heal a broken leg is to have one. You've suffered. You know what suffering is. You know what pain is. You can help someone in pain, So that's basically what you're saying.
That you summed it up in a nutshell.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's one of my big things now, too, because Jim and Dave and, so many of my guests, we've always brought up the fact that the reason I do this is for that kid who knows there's something in their closet or is seeing something and nobody is believing them. I want to give them ways to reach out and talk to other people and then maybe get some guidance, because it's so tough. Imagine the kid with in the Sixth Sense. If that kid didn't have a mother who listened and tried to get him help, the school didn't listen, they just put him in the back of the room, all that stuff. That still happens today. With everything we know, with all the shows and all the books and all the videos and all the pictures, we're still doing that to our youth, and there should be a way to reach out. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, my mom listened to me. She believed me. She also has abilities, as did my grandmother. So really, the whole family kind of has things. I have 3 boys. I'm a single mom of 3 boys, which is funny you said you have 2.
Yeah.
And they all have different abilities. It's just normal for us. They're all aware of some of the people in the house, some are in the court.
That's between the two. That's interesting, though. What do you think, Cisco, about how there's such a strong hereditary gift that's passed along? I mean,
well,
what?
Well, look at it this way. Let's take the for a second. Let's take the scientific look at it. Red hair is hereditary and it skips. You might not get a redhead in your family for 2 generations, and then all of a sudden, bam, they go, oh, she's got Aunt Mary's hair, or something along those lines. I think it's just as natural as brown eyes, or something like that. And you know what, Jim? Honestly, I think we're all born with it. I mean, if you look at animals, fight or flight, a rabbit doesn't question itself when it feels something coming, when it feels a predator coming. And I'll tell you something else that a lot of people don't realize if you're not into nature. They warn each other. They don't just take off on their own self. They each have little chatters. Each bird has a little chatter. A tiny little chickadee bird, 2 inches big, if you know what a chickadee looks like, has 5 different calls for different predators. It has a different one for a hawk. It has a different one for a cat or a dog. It has a different one. So not only are they stopping and warning their friends and and those around them, but they're telling them what to look for. So if animals can have that, I think that human beings are born with that intuition, and we talk ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I do think we all have abilities. It's just that, how, I guess, recognizing them and feeling in touch with them, I mean, that's the whole key to it, I think.
Yeah, I believe that's true. And like I said, not talking yourself out of it. There's very few people that, if say you were getting on an elevator and the elevator opens up and there's somebody in the elevator and your whole body, the hair goes up in the back of your neck or whatever, and you get the feeling, I'm not supposed to get on that elevator. Now everything starts going through your mind. Well, I don't want to be embarrassed, or I'm really I'm in a hurry, or I don't want to make that person feel bad. 10,000 feelings start coming through your mind. I don't get on the elevator. I don't give a hoot who I hurt, what. I was like, I listen to my gut. Do you see what I mean? And a lot of people don't do that. We talk ourselves out of it. We've become very out of touch with our grounding, our nature, our connection to the earth, and a flow of all that energy. And that's absolutely true, because if it wasn't true, taking your shoes off and walking around in the grass, or dancing barefoot in the rain wouldn't make us feel better. I mean, you're grounding, putting your hands in earth and planting things. Absolutely true. We need to connect back.
As I said, I have a medical background, and I remember I've always used, the Holy Ghost and the Lord to help me, and ask for Him to be my guide. And honestly, I've had some remarkable experiences. I know a friend of mine. We were at a meeting a number of years ago, and he came up to me and he was asking me some health-related questions, and he was having a lot of muscular difficulty and sort of shakes, and anyhow, as he's talking to me, I heard it so clearly, a voice tell me that, have you had your blood tested for arsenic?
Wow.
And so I asked him, and he said, no, I haven't. And I said, I don't know exactly why, but I strongly suggest test it. And as it turned out, he did have arsenic poisoning.
Yeah. And you wonder, does that come through you, or is it a spirit guide, or, their spirit guides telling you? I mean, I think we do get a lot of help. Let me ask, if you don't mind, each one of you, I'm going to ask you this question. If you hear a voice, or you hear something, whether it's telepathic or not, or just an audible outside of your head voice, is there a particular side, like you mostly hear it from the right, the left, or in the center of your head? Jim?
Well, I'm going to have to say my right.
Okay. How about you, Haley?
I'm going to have to say most of the times it's my right because I get a ringing in my left.
Isn't that amazing? Dave, how about you?
I hear, anytime I've ever heard anything like that, it's been my left, and to me that's strange, because as a child I was hit by a foul baseball that almost completely tore my left ear off. The only part of the ear that was still attached was down by my earlobe.
Wow.
I had to basically have it reattached. And so I do have a little bit of hearing loss here. But anytime I've ever heard anything of this nature, it's always been that left side, which I was fine with.
Wow. Okay, now this is the reason I asked. Because I've heard from several different people, much wiser than I will ever be, describe to me that usually you have a side to hear the higher vibrational things, like spirit guide, an ascended spirit. Okay, so whether it be an angel, spirit guide, a loved one, or someone that's just passed and crossed over and ascended up and gone through a higher vibrational thing, okay? Then a lot of times you'll get in the center. You can get those as well, but it's more of a telepathic. It's within your own head. It's not coming from the outside in. And usually you're hearing lower vibrational things that aren't coming from that higher vibration. So it could be, that doesn't mean, a negative entity or anything like that, but it usually means someone who has not crossed, that's kind of in the lower frequencies in your left.
Oh.
And I didn't know, but I didn't want to tell you that before you thought about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And see,
good question.
But you know what really plays into that is, I don't know if you paid any attention, but I would say maybe the last month or so, there was this sound clip going around, heard this name and that name, and so they broke it down digitally and found it was saying both, just one was at a higher frequency, one was at a lower frequency.
Yep.
Yeah. And I heard the different things. I heard one, he heard the other.
Yeah.
That's what we were saying last night, too. That sometimes you'll get an EVP, and he'll hear one, and you'll hear a different one because it's at a different frequency. And again, it's all energy. It's all frequencies. I have friends who are medium, and Haley, you'd be interested in this. I don't know how much you've deciphered this on your own personal way, but I've got them who will do readings. There's some famous ones who will only do readings from the higher vibrational realms. The minute it starts getting into the lower, they can't pick it up because they're so much light that they say, I can't go there. And then I have other ones that are kind of reading, they can read your normal stuff or pick up in a haunted house or whatever, or a crossed person that comes through to give a message. But then this one lady will sit there and she'll go, hang on, I got to raise my frequency because your mom has crossed, she's in such a high frequency, if you believe that there's different levels of whatever you want to call heaven or Valhalla or the light, wherever you want to call it, there's different realms and levels, and she's raised herself up. I have to raise my vibration to be able to hear her because she's so high up in the frequency. I think that's fascinating.
I was ask you, Disco, if you found that exact thing, because I have found that people that connect the lower vibrational area and the mid, and then there's people that connect from the mid to the higher end.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if that's just like experience or is that...
Oh, honey, I don't know. I don't know if it's experience or if it's what we were talking about earlier. Let me answer it this way. Let's just talk about hands for a minute, okay? Most people, and God bless you if you have any kind of disability where you weren't. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here, but most people are born with two hands. And as you grow up, you learn to use your hands for many things. And then you start making the choice. Hands can be used for so many things. You could be a concert pianist. You could be a neurosurgeon. You could be a nurse. You could be a caregiver. You could be a mother and help your children. You could be a mechanic. So many things hands do. And we're all given those two hands, like I said, in most cases. So
Right.
if we have this ability, is it something that we take just like our hands and decide what we're going to do with it and then work on that thing until we can be a concert pianist? Now, I can sit down in front of, I'm a musician, but I can't play the piano. I play guitar and I sing, but I can't sit in front of, as hard as I try, I can have the music in front of me, I have the understanding, but I can't make myself make anything that sounds like music come out of a keyboard. I can't.
Oh,
And I don't know if it's that simple that some people are just born in it. I saw a 3-year-old play Mozart like he's been playing it for 50 years. It's a natural ability.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from here? So then you add on this ability, this gift. Yes, I believe that some things get stronger with just like doing sit-ups. You can only do 3 to 5, and then you keep doing them every day before you know it, you're doing 25 and 100 and all this other. It is like a muscle where you practice and it gets stronger and stronger. But what makes us take that path? Is it the inherent ability we were born with the gift? Or was it because we practice it so much we got as good as we could get? Or is it a combination of both, such as in the piano? It's hard to say. I think you're going to fall into, now we're going to put the spirituality back into it and understand that for whatever reason, whatever name you want to call it, obviously somebody else has got the wheel here. They know what they're doing because we're not getting it till we can handle it. You see what I mean? Or we're given a taste of it. And then, it's kind of directing us like we all have a purpose.
And you know what, though? It's also, I have long believed that team chemistry goes a long way into or not a good or a bad investigation as far as the result.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Jim hears one frequency and I'm hearing another, he up an EVP, he says, here's what I'm hearing, no, I'm hearing this. But over the years, as we progress, and now along with Haley, she slid right in like she's been with us the whole time.
Meant to be.
I know what he's listening for at his frequency. He knows what for my frequency. So instead of him just listening for what he hears, he's listening to hear what I'm going to hear, and I'm doing the opposite. And there's a lot of times where we'll both say, we both heard this exact same thing because I'm trying to put myself into his vibrations and he's doing the same to me, and it's coming together where we're both hearing the same thing sometimes now.
Isn't that amazing? And I think you're right about team chemistry. I know some fantastic. I know paranormal groups that are solely made up of police officers, CSI people. They use cadaver dogs. They use, all kinds of things. There's an amazing amount of different groups out there. And I just I almost want to bang my head into a wall when I think, look at all the information we have. In my lifetime, I have, again, gone from the only thing that was on TV is if you were lucky, you got In Search Of, maybe did a ghost thing.
Right.
And Hans Holzer would be on that. You might have had, a movie of some kind that really tried to get it right. And there's some old ones who did, old movies that got it right, and things like that. But you really had to look. I went to the library. My mom was a single mom, and she was always in a hurry. Bless her heart, she had to work. This is in the 60s, so she was doing it before it was cool. And and we moved a lot because she was always looking for that better job. And books were my friends. And I remember this one library she drops me off in front of, and she stayed out front and ran the car. She'd just go in there, hurry, get your books. And, so I wasn't familiar with the library. And back then you had rules. You had the Dewey Decimal System and the card catalog you had to look through. Yeah. And then just bear with me here. It's going to make sense. And the librarians were so mad if you asked them to show you something. They'll answer a question, but they wanted you to do it yourself. And I went and I looked and I couldn't find anything. And I ran back up to her, and she was a typical, at that point in time, librarian with the sweater over her shoulders and the glasses, down her nose with a little chain on it and a little bun on top of her head. And I said, ma'am, I said I'm supposed to do this myself, but I can't find the books I'm looking for. I said, if you don't mind, my mother's in a hurry, and I really like to have these books because I was the new kid in town all the time. Books were my friends. I devoured them. And she said, okay, well, basically, all right, I'll help you. What are you looking for? And I said, I'm looking for the true ghost stories. And she stood up. She put her glasses down her nose so she could look over them at me. And she said, there are no true ghost stories. So I have gone from that time. And of course, we went over to the occult, and she got me some, some things from there and all that, and some bump in the night kid stories. But, that was it. I've gone from that time, and I was probably 9, 10 there. And so 40 years, later, and it just seems like now we have so much of it, people still aren't believing. And not only that, maybe not believing, but you and I have fantastic ghost pictures from Gettysburg. I don't even put them up because I don't want the negativity of people going, oh, you put a filter on this and then you did this. Nope, sorry, didn't do it. Wouldn't know how to do it. Let alone ethically, I wouldn't do it. And so we could be looking at stuff that's real and still don't believe it. And how did we get here? To have so much that we're still, in that spot where paranormal groups are going, okay, I have this, you don't, we have it, you don't have it, but we've got the best and you don't have the best. And you guys told me last night that you've just stopped, and now you're just in it just to figure it out for yourselves and to try to help the ghosts that might be there, to communicate and to learn for yourselves too. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Because
I know.
If I can...
Yeah, go on, Haley. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, if I could say something as a newbie, I didn't realize, and now this is only going off, nobody's, really said anything to me, but this is going off of people that I've been in contact with through this particular journey. I didn't realize that there was quite so much politics, so to say, in pretty much everything, including this field. And I just feel really blessed to have found people that are not wrapped up in that completely. I mean, I've heard stories about other teams. I see other things being shared online from some awesome people that I've met. And it's just like, wow. Like, I feel like the universe led me directly. Like, they just skipped over that. And led me to a great team, with great people. To you and Janet, you guys don't seem like the kind of people that I kind of like, maybe, maybe not. No, like, you guys feel real to me, and that's what I've been waiting for. That's what I've wanted.
Isn't that wonderful?
I want to do a show out of this. It's not a show,
Yeah. It's wonderful.
You know what I mean?
But see, you were probably drawn here. I was drawn to them through Tammy, and the reason, this is the word she said to me, you have to pull the energy on these guys because they're for real. Not only are they for real, they have what she said was a paranormal heart. She goes, they're in it like you are, Cisco. They're in it like I am. And people forget something. When you're sensitive and when you're, whatever medium, I'm not a medium, I'm an extra small.
Right?
Yeah, because I mean, I get it, and boy, when I get it, it's spot on and it's right there, but I don't go around trying, you know what I mean? I'm the one that's in the grocery store, and I don't hear them here's one for you. I don't hear them anymore if they are stuck in their death state or they are a ghost, okay? This is all about frequency as well. I can hear them if they're crossed and they're coming back to give me a message for a loved one who's suffering or something else. I hear that loud and clear. And people say, well, why is that? And I said, I think it's frequency. I'm tuned into that frequency more. I can feel them, as the ghost. I can feel everything they're going through, if they have anxiety, if they have question, if their energy, everything.
Yes.
But I don't hear them. I have to have something back up my feeling, like a flashlight or a dowsing rods or something along those lines. Does that make sense? But that's fantastic. And when I pulled them up on the live, it took me exactly 30 seconds. I looked at Jim and I said, okay, well, he's a multi-level empath and he has a fantastic heart and he's in it for that. He's very interested. He has a scientific base. I'm feeling all of that. And then I looked over at Dave and I said, man, and I connected into him as a fellow soldier. And, I could feel a lot of that. I could feel a lot of the heart and trying to understand. But I could also tell that he was more of the, not skeptic, but skeptical, if you know what I mean. Like, maybe that's how he started out. But that also helps, you see. He wants to see it. He wants to figure it out for himself. I connected in 30 seconds into both of them. They're amazing people. That's why they're on my show.
And, butterfly effect. Jim and I were doing this for a number of years, and we'd hit a wall. We had exhausted our time at Gettysburg. We had time at Harper's Ferry, and, we were at a loss of where to go, how to go beyond that. So we kind of took a lull for a good 2 or 3 years. And then out of nowhere, Jim says, look, I've got this place that I want us to go check out. And it happened to be the Bel Air House. And sure, whatever, I'm down for it. So we went up there, and that's when we went. Mike and Lola and Kristen and Goat and all these people, and Rick and Gigi, and everything just fell into place. And it literally, relit that fire, like our pilot light had gone out. And that specific investigation lit it back up. And it's been hot and heavy ever since. But if he doesn't come to me and say, I know we haven't done anything in a couple of years, let's go try this place, we don't go to Bel Air House. We don't go to Bel Air House. Our passion isn't reborn. Our passion isn't reborn. I don't pull up and talk to him about starting a Facebook page. I don't start a Facebook page. We don't meet Rob and Nikki from Live Paranormal. We don't meet them. We don't have our Facebook Live show. We don't have that. We don't meet Haley's mom. Haley's mom tells her to call, and now we're here, all of us together. Yep. It's that butterfly effect, that little pebble that casts ripples all the way across that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in a lot of ways, you'll find, as you open to this, from an old girl to somebody who's just walking into this, expect it. Expect it because it's coming. It's coming in waves, and it's going to be fantastic because it just keeps coming at you. It's like I tell people, if you just understand, I don't know how you guys feel about signs, but I'll tell you it's true. As far as loved ones leaving you coins with their birth date or your birth date or something on it. A cardinal coming and lingering, just when you were just thinking about it, butterflies and, feathers being left. I had a beautiful white gossamer feather left on the dashboard of my car inside a locked car that I only had access to. It was one key. But it came at a time when I needed it the most. You know what I mean? And if you talk yourself out of the little miracles that happen all the time, you're just missing out. But if you accept that and you say, I hear you. Thank you for this. This is so cool. I needed this. And you just send happy thoughts and energy back. It comes more. And that's the way the paranormal works. The more you connect into those who need help. These are our fellow human beings that for some reason decided not to cross. Now, you can have a whole list of reasons why. The number one being fear or, wanting to stay back to help a grieving loved one. And before they knew it, they lost track of being able to get across. And you have to connect them back into that love light, anxiety, fear, forgiveness, all these different things, or just, maybe it happens so fast, as they say, in an accident or something like that, and they just don't realize they are. Or like in a battlefield, same thing. So when you start helping them and you start being able to communicate with them, and you just real quick just fall right into it, read my intent. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to make you bang on a wall for 4 hours so I can get everything on. Do you see what I mean? If you want to communicate with me and if you want to show us some things so we can show others that this is real, fantastic. But if you're low on energy and you just want to talk and you need help, well, we're the people that are going to do it. And it keeps coming. It keeps coming in floods,
About leaving things, as I said last night, and we do work dead at the temples. Well, I had an aunt and uncle who were like a second mother and father to me, very very dear people. They died within a few years of, but even when they were in their senior years, it's a great love story. They cuddled and they were just so loving toward each other. And anyhow, in our church, we have to wait a year after someone's passed before we can do their temple work. Well, you know how when you go to a funeral, you get a little card, about the people and whatnot. So anyhow, here my wife and I, we just start uncovering all these cards, my aunt or uncle from like the funeral service. And I'm like, what? How many damn cards did we pick up? And finally, we're even rotating our mattress. You know how you flip your mattress?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, there's a card underneath the mattress of them. Yeah. And I'm like, so I told my wife, I said, how long has it been? And she looked, she says, it's been 14 months. I said, we got to get to the temple and do their work. So down there, we did their work to seal them. The cards stopped.
Wow.
But before that time, I mean, we're turning up cards like every week in the craziest places.
Yeah, they'll find a way, and they'll do what they'll do what they can. And I think that's what people misunderstand about having activity in a house, or, you go to an antique store and you buy, something, say, I'll never wear a wedding ring I'm telling you right now, are you really thinking about wearing a ring that somebody wore on their finger for 50 years and you're not expecting some kind of activity? Think about the thing that it absorbs. First of all, it's either gold or silver or platinum, and it's going to absorb. And I'm not a big fan of diamonds anyway. They're born out of a lot of, bloodshed. And I'm not a big fan. I'm not. It causes so much problem. And then you're bringing that, wearing that, and, you're just absorbing so much energy. I know many people have brought objects in. There's so many famous cases on that, from bringing stones from Hawaii, lava rock from Hawaii. They say don't bring it. And then they get boxes of them mailed back with letters. Please take this back. Please take this back. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. Or, things from the Titanic. Have you guys heard about that, where people were purchasing coal from the Titanic, and they were having ghosts of the engineers that died in the engine room?
Oh, wow.
And
no.
Yes, so they mailed the coal back and the letters with it. Please forgive me for, I don't want this. Please take it back and make it stop. They attach themselves to certain objects. That's amazing to me, but it's true.
If you would sometime too, if on our messaging, you would give email. I want to send you a picture. A number of years ago, we were in California, and I was on the Queen Mary, and I wasn't ghost hunting. I was just taking a tour of the boat, one of the Twilight tours.
Mm-hmm. And
anyhow, I waited till the group got ahead, and I was at the cabin area. The chief navigator, when they were at sea, had to maintain his position there on the deck for 7. So they had a little room where he could lay down and a few dresser drawers. So I take this picture there, and it's really remarkable. It's like a photograph of the guy. You can see him, his color of his eyes, everything. Facial hair. And it's Queen Mary. So we did send that to the Historic Society to see if they could match it up with any of the known navigators, and I haven't heard back yet, but I want to send you a copy of that picture. You'll love it.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you the easiest way you're welcome to do that anytime anybody wants to send anything to this show. It's journeythroughthegate@gmail.com. That's for all your ghost stories, that's your uncanny, your questions, all of that. Or you can just go ahead and put it on the Gatekeepers page if you want others to see it as well.
Oh,
You can do that as well, and just to put an explanation there, and that's what that page is for too. But if you want to keep it private, I understand you send it to my email. That's not a problem. But everybody's welcome to do that. And I was just reminded of something else, you guys. I wanted to tell them a little bit about your YouTube channel, because you've got so many videos and things from your investigation on that channel. Can you tell listeners how to get to that channel on YouTube?
Yes, just go to YouTube and do a search for Keystone State Paranormal Society and pull it. It should pull right up. The logo is just a black background with green letters, KSPS.
Okay. And I suggest the listeners do that, because a lot of the things they're talking about is on there, a lot of their investigations, Gettysburg, different battlefields. And the name of the house that is there is... You were telling me about it last night. I don't want to say it wrong. It's the cabin that's in Gettysburg that you go to?
Oh, yeah.
Thaddeus Stevens.
That's the Thaddeus Stevens house.
Mm-hmm.
It's an original log cabin from the 1790s.
Wow.
And it's the home of Thaddeus Stevens as he started his law practice, and he was still at that time with the Pennsylvania state legislature. And just sort of as a historical aside, Thaddeus Stevens was the prime factor in getting public education through the state of Pennsylvania. Prior to then, there was only some of the New England states had public education. Mm-hmm. And Thaddeus Stevens came from his humble background, and he was instrumental. He had a very impassioned plea on the floor of the legislature in Harrisburg, and as a result of that, Pennsylvania was one of the earliest states then to adopt public schooling. And that's one of the things he's proudest of, and he's verified that with us in that house.
Wow, that's amazing. And like I said, go to the YouTube channel. You can get a lot of the videos there of their investigation, and also again at the KSPS Facebook page. And I know you guys have a website coming as well. That's in the works, correct?
Yeah, yes. It's in the final design stages over our team bio as well as our individual bios for Rob Zarek, who is the creator of LiveParanormal.com. He's actually building the page for us. We're expecting it to be done within the next week, and as soon as we know, then we'll post it on our Facebook and our Twitter and our Instagram of when it goes live. And when we do go live, it will be www.theunknown.com.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm sure you'll keep us posted as well, because this isn't going to be our first conversation. And speaking of conversation, you guys have got a couple of EVPs you'd like to play. Are you ready to do that?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. The floor is yours. Tell us what we're listening to, and I'd love to get a little bit of explanation, and then we'll get you to play it again so the listeners have a couple chances to hear. Haley, are you still with us, honey?
Oh, I'm still here. I'm taking it all in and earthing.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, go ahead, guys. Floor is yours.
Okay. Now, these are, David, I guess because of your special interest in Gettysburg and that, these are all from Gettysburg on play. And as time allows, we got really Class 1 EVPs other places as well. But we'll play a bunch of these. These are all from Gettysburg. This first one here I'll play because this is very clear, very short. But this was as you enter Gettysburg from Chambersburg. So you're going west to east along Chambersburg Pike. And as you enter Gettysburg, that was the scene of the initial battle. The first day's battle, that was where General Buford's cavalry had dismounted and taken defensive positions. And now, keep in mind, anybody who's not familiar with Gettysburg, the South arrives from the battle from the north and from the west. And the Union soldiers actually arrive on the battle from the south and the east. So it's sort of opposite what one might think. So Buford's taken up positions along the Chambersburg Pike, and this is in this area where some of the earliest of the battle took place. This is a real quickie, but this one's pretty easy to listen to. So that one's pretty easy to pick up. Now, hopefully that came through.
It did come through. Am I hearing? Well, I'm hearing definitely 3 syllables, and it almost sounds like shotguns sharp or.
Shot down and killed. Yes. That's what it.
Okay.
Here, let me
play it again.
Play that again.
Now, what are you saying? What did it say?
Shot down and killed.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I was definitely getting the shot, but I couldn't quite place. Yes. Yes, I'm hearing that. That's amazing. And that was right there.
Yeah, it was right there where Buford took up the original defensive positions, and as the Confederates were just coming in from the western location. So that was, I believe that was as early as like 9 or so in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that was some of the earliest of the battle.
Yeah, the first day. He was right there. He took up that time, the high ground, as Sam Elliott made it so famous, the high ground. They were gonna hold that, and as well they did.
Buford was very wise, and then of course his cavalry had the Sharps repeating rifles. So that point is a big advantage over the Confederate troops, where they could move those cavalry and mount them, and with the repeating rifles, it was almost like 3-to-1 effect.
Right.
So it was a big advantage that the North had. Mm-hmm. Now this one was in Pardee's Field. Pardee's Field is sort of in back of Culp's Hill, and how they talk in the Civil War about brother. Well, this is one of those cases where you had Union troops from Maryland who met Southern troops from Maryland in Pardee's Field. So these literally were, the brother to brother. I'm not going to tell you what this says. See what you pick up, but this is a pretty interesting one. Now, none of that is us.
Wow.
All of those voices. Now, and again, I apologize. The cicadas that year, Culp's Hill.
Cicadas, yes.
And unfortunately, them damn cicadas, and I have yet to find anything that helps remove them stinking things out of the track.
Right.
But I thought it was amazing that above all of that, you can hear the voices.
Right. One more time.
I'm going to play that one more time.
Wow. And there's a lot going on there. I can't quite make out what he's saying, but I hear it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is they're all in white. They're all in white. Look. Here's somebody walking. They're saying somebody walking.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, there was a lot going on in that one as far as, the voices. I mean, you could hear it. Okay.
Now, here's another one, short and sweet. And this was, again, on the first day's battle. This is maybe a couple hours after the Buford soldiers. They've shoved the Confederates back maybe about a half mile in toward town. and the Park Service has a road there now, and there was a small little area coming up off of Willoughby Run. There's a creek there on that side called Willoughby Run. As you're coming up, the hill goes uphill, and it descends upward, and the Confederate troops are coming up the hill. In this small area, there were 13 color bearers went down in a span of 30 minutes. This is both north and south. And it was a very intense battle. And this is just real quick and right to the picture. So what that say? You will like death.
Say it again.
You will like death.
Oh man.
Here it is.
Wow.
then,
Was there anybody else near that? I'm hearing almost a female note.
Yeah,
the second voice is a female, and it sounds like they're saying something to the effect of either get in town or get down.
Yeah, get down or get in town.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Play that one more time. Play that one more time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it definitely has a southern twang to it, that female voice.
I hear that. Yes, I do. And just for the listeners, too, understand that these ghosts are on almost a faster, higher frequency. Even though they're in a lower frequency themselves, they're still at a higher frequency than we are. So it's going to come fast and it's going to come high. Do you know what I mean? And that makes a lot of sense when you listen to these. It's almost like, remember being a kid and talking through a fan? We all did that. You know, you get behind a fan and talk through it. It's kind of like that sometimes.
And a lot of these are over 20 years old, so the technology was a lot different back then. It wasn't quite as clear, the processing and everything else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This one now, this is what was a guy who used to go out with us with early, and this again was over in Culp's Hill, and you'll hear the person on our team sort of saying, I'd be mad if I was a loser or something to that effect, and then you'll hear the spirit call him a nitwit. So we'll play this one.
I'd be mad if I was a loser. I'd be mad if I was a loser.
Yep.
I'd be mad if I was a loser.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's something that they used back then, too. You know, something we talk about all the time. We're talking about battles, and we can get real into, in Gettysburg, it was Victorian time, and when I go to speak with them and others that I know, we have to really be careful how we say things, too. Because things that are normal to us every day can be very rude to them. These people, when they went into town, would call each other Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a married couple. They'd even call honey or sweetie or even by their first names. They were, like you said last night, it was a chivalrous and, they could be living in rags, but they held their head up and they tried to be as proper as they could, and to go out there and just, you're speaking to them in today's slang and everything like that, you're going to get a lot of rebuttal as well. So nitwit was something that they used, believe it or not.
Now, this is one, we'd love to get your take on this, either one of you. You, who was probably 6 or 7 at the time, Jimmy. We're again in that spot, Willoughby Run, coming uphill to where all the fighting was going on, where I got the shot down and killed. And he's holding a recorder, one of those old Panasonics, and as he's walking up the hill, you're going to hear, like, silence. And all of a sudden, you're going to hear, like, screaming and confusion. You're going to hear battle, and then it's silence again. And
it's almost like he walked into a cone of silence and then picked up screams of battle. I mean, it's freaked. It's so. When you listen to this, first heard it. It reminded me of the Beatles album, that Revolution.
Yeah, So, obviously this is remedial energy. But it's like, I think he walked into it and then he walked out of it and he didn't feel any difference. But that's been my impression on this. Here, I'll play this.
Wow.
Yeah, no specific voice or anything, but it just sort of sounds like, to me, battle sound.
It does. It reminds me a little bit. Even I'm going to ask Haley, what did you just get off that energy? Because that was pretty profound for me. Did you feel it?
Honestly, I'm trying to look it up to my, just so I can hear more on my speaker. I'm on the phone, so I can't hear much, but I felt very similar to the way I feel when I walk through certain parts of Gettysburg, I'll say.
Yep.
Which is just a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. It's chaos is what it is.
I got real fast. One of my first things is I'll get like somebody is okay, you ever been to the dentist and they throw that that heavy vest on you because they're going to do x-rays?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's real heavy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I mean, I had nothing, and then all of a sudden I heard that, and it was like the heavy vest was on me, and then it was lifted off again. That was, he walked into something, because I got energy on that, and it was the same as having that heavy press on my chest, The
Iron Face, when we first found that one, and because we named them all so we remember what they are, we actually named that one Time Warp Scream.
It is. It's like he walked up into something, but the energy was still in there. It wasn't so much of what I heard; it's what I felt on that one.
Now this one was done in the Edge field, and I know you had mentioned about the wheat field the other night.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And this, the wheat field, amazing. They actually do. I've taken one of the private tours by one of the guides, does a 4-hour tour where we're just looking at the wheat field and the intricacies of that. That is one of the most complex battle schemes in the whole Civil War.
It's quite amazing.
This one you're going to actually hear, and it's amazing. We actually did this at a conference, played this. You're going to hear a bugle like you never heard a bugle. It sounded like Dave's here blowing a bugle. And you're going to hear what I think of cavalry in like a Hawk company. But, I mean, this bugle is just unbelievable. And this is what... Now, we did not hear this with our ears. Mm-hmm. The recorder picked this up. But we're going to play this here.
I'm hearing the bugle and I'm hearing halt.
Yeah,
Halt Company.
Yeah, Halt Company.
Oh, wow. Oh.
And
is that bugle amazing? And
wow.
We did hear that.
Also, as an aside to all of these EVPs, anything we've ever picked up on Gettysburg, once we have filtered through the evidence and found something, we have always marked the date that we got it and the time that we got it, and have gone back and checked with the park rangers to verify that where we got it and when we got it, there were no reenactments taking place that we would have picked up.
Right.
Now here's another.
Wait, Jim, you mind go back and play that one again, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Please. Phenomenal.
I mean, now, here's another bugle we picked up. Now, it's nothing like that one, but you can tell it's a bugle, and then there's some voices. It's not as pronounced, but this was another bugle, and again, when we're picking this up, there's nothing else on the field. I mean, we're not getting we verified there's no reenactors and stuff like that. So here's another one with the bugle. And again, there's a shout. We couldn't make out what the shout's saying, but it's a bugle. It's much more subdued, the other, but it's, and then there's a shout. And again, we didn't hear any of that.
Wow. Isn't it amazing? I can't explain the science on that, something could be picked up on tape. And from a lot of people, I'm hearing that the good old-fashioned tape recorders are almost better in some ways than some of the newer ones, as far as what they're trying to pick up. It might be different for, a ghost communication that's right there, or picking up something that's a residual imprint. I don't know. But those are incredible.
Well, I'll tell you this, the Panasonic that Jim is still using to this day, that was the very first piece of equipment we ever bought, picked up some phenomenal things for us. What we do have now is a Tascam, and this thing, we have paired this Tascam while using the Phasma box. The thing that we have figured out is you can set the decibels on the Tascam, the decibel range that it will record. So we'll set it at a frequency that is above what a human ear can comprehend, and we'll set it to record, and we'll run a Phasma box session. And we'll go 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, and we're not hearing anything. There's no voices at all coming through. And then we'll go back and play that Tascam, and they're just talking up a storm, because it's picking up what we physically can't hear.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Now, this one was actually in the military cemetery there at Gettysburg, and there's a section in that cemetery toward the middle where they have a big. Now, keep in mind, the military cemetery is basically Union soldiers. There are a few Confederates that are buried there, but it was meant for the Union soldiers. And in the middle, there's an area where it's all unknown soldiers. They just have them marked unknown, and there's little
like
stones.
Numbers, don't they? Like a marker number.
Yeah, marker number, but it's just marked unknown.
Okay,
So
let me ask you a question. I'm sorry. Are you talking about, you walk in the gate of the cemetery, not the one on the other side, the green cemetery, but the main one?
This is right, the main Gettysburg Military Cemetery.
And
correct.
You walk in, and then there's a circle like a pie.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a story for you after you play this one. Go ahead.
Okay. Now keep in mind, Janet has told us, we've taken Janet there before, and from the left side of that cemetery, she just has a difficult time because she sees the young boys lined up, all calling for her attention and to tell their mothers
Yes.
what's happened. So it's real painful for her there.
It is myself as well. Yeah. I get it.
Real difficult time. This is actually, my brother was with me. He's quite the historian on Gettysburg, much better than me. And to him, it's a very spiritual place. So we're up there with the unknowns, and you're going to hear initially my brother saying the knowns and the unknowns, and then you'll hear the voice in after him. It's very hushed, but basically it's saying unknown. So the first voice that's much more apparent, that is my brother. The second voice is the spirit.
Known and unknown. Known and unknown. Known and unknown.
So that first one, known and unknown, that's my brother. And then the voice comes in after him saying unknown.
Say it again, please. Play it again, please.
Huh?
Known and unknown. Known and unknown.
Yep, I got it. That place, wow. Just from beginning to end, all the way through. But I will tell you this is just for you guys, and I can show you the picture. It's amazing. I'm sorry I'm stumbling here because it was just an emotional thing, and you'll understand why. Being a soldier, we didn't have a lot of time. I had planned everything because I took my sons with me the one time that we went, and I had everything planned because it was Halloween, and we only had 2 days and a night, basically 2 nights and 2 days. And I tried to get through everything, and I wasn't sure where I was supposed to be, but I knew I had to be some places and really felt like more than one. I can't explain that, but it's true. So I had told them, okay, we're going up here to the next thing, but I want to walk in here because we stayed at the motel right outside of those gates. There's a motel right across the street. We stayed there because I wanted walking distance for everything. So anyway,
Right.
before they closed the gates that night, I said, I want to walk up. Now, crazy me, walking up into a cemetery at night on a Halloween night, but there I go. I said, I want to go in and pay my respects because I know that there's unknown here and nobody, they don't get as much prayer. There's so many unknown and mass graves there, but that was a spot. And the way it's set up, it's this round pie kind of thing. And behind it is off to one side, there's a Lincoln memorial with the big head of Lincoln.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and the big thing. And they went over and read that, and I'm standing in the middle of the thing, and I'm turning as I'm saying prayers. I said prayers for each one, my own personal little thing for each one. And I turn around and I see my sons walking from the Lincoln thing, and they came by and they said, we're going to go out here to see which direction we go down what street. So they walk out the gate there, and again, Halloween in Pennsylvania, leaves everywhere. Now, I am a rock collector. And everywhere I go, I pick up a rock from where I was. And we were actually in the car. This is the first night we were there. And I told them, I said, boys, I know you're used to grabbing rocks and giving them to me because I always go home with, 30 pounds heavier with rocks. I said, don't take anything from Gettysburg because it all belongs to them. You know what I mean? I said, I'm not, I don't want a rock. I don't want a pebble. I don't want anything. So, but they're so used to it. So I'm standing in the circle, and I can see as I turn around, I'm saying my prayers for the unknown. I look out, and they're outside the gate by where the sidewalk and the street is. And I looked at them, and I was overwhelmed, and I could feel one standing there that was prominent. And I just spoke to him, and I said, I can feel what you're feeling right now, but I cannot hear you, so I don't know what else to do, and I don't know what to do to calm you, so the only thing I can think of to do is this. And I said the Lord's Prayer for them. And I said, I have to go, but I'll be back tomorrow, and I hope that brought you some comfort. You are not forgotten. I remember you. And as I walked away, I could feel him behind me, and I turned back around, and I said, I hope you heard that. And I felt just this calm come over me. And I turned around and I said, I'll be back, I promise. And I turned around, and then as I walked forward toward the gate, I could see where my sons were. And my oldest son, Jess, he looks down, like at that second, he just looks down at his foot, and he kind of moves his foot in the leaves a little bit, and he bends over and he picks something up. And I thought to myself, oh man, he looks in his hand, he looks up at me and looks back down at his hand again. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, he's found a rock. And now I got to break his heart and tell him I don't want it because it belongs to them. Everything belongs to them. They've earned it. I don't want to take a piece of earth from here. And he comes walking at me, and in my hand he goes, they told me to give this to you. Because he has it too.
Yeah.
And in his hand is a silver crucifix.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow,
I had just said the Lord's Prayer. They heard me. I still wear it around my neck to this day.
Can
you imagine that? Finding that in the leaves at that second? And they told me to give this to you. That's crazy.
That was intention.
We had friends of ours from Florida visiting here earlier in spring, and they're from the area. They haven't been up here in the area for probably 10, 12 years, and he wanted to go to Gettysburg. I took him over there, and of course the new visitor center and whatnot. So as I took him through the cyclorama, as we come off, they have a number of pictures on the wall there, both Southern and Northern participants and women who served in, with the medical corps or whatever. And or women of Gettysburg, and it has, what happened to them after the war and their brief summary of their life. And there was a lady there with her son. Her son was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and she's looking at the pictures and she's saying, oh, that guy, he is a North, so he's a good guy, and that guy with the South, oh, he's one of the bad guys.
Ooh.
And boy, that just burned me. And I come up, and I said very politely, I said, ma'am, I said, these are all great Americans.
Yep.
They sacrificed for this country, and they sacrificed so we can enjoy what we enjoy today. There are no bad individuals on that wall. And then they left. You know, I don't know how she took it. But this is the neat part. No sooner did I say that, as I turned around, I felt on my back 3 pats. Thought it was my friend, you know. And I look, and no, he's ahead of me a couple. There's nobody around me. And I swear I felt 3 pats on my back. I said, no, I'm defending all these boys.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think they know that, and you know, if you can get past the, you know, depending on where they are, like we said earlier, in their understanding of what they're going through at the time, you know, they realize it too. I mean, I had to literally, I got out of the Army at Redstone Arsenal, and I lived in Alabama, and I raised my boys in Alabama, but I was born in New Jersey, and I actually had to tell this guy that I was talking to, trying to communicate with, I said, look, you see my sons? They were born in Alabama. I was born in New Jersey. Somewhere along the line, we all came together. You know, what you've done here will not be forgotten, you know, but we've come together, and now we're here to help you, you know, and then they started calming down. So it's just, you know, people forget you're talking to people, you know, it's just that way. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop your EVPs, but I had to share that story with you.
That's a great story. Oh, yeah, Dave, I'll tell you what, let me play. Dave wants me to key. God, I got so many from Gettysburg. I mean, we could be going forever, but they wanted me to key a couple that is just real special to him. These aren't from Gettysburg, but they're great keys. So I'm going to kick out of here. And
now, the one he's going to play, just to give you the backstory, unfortunately I wasn't with him this night, but this is my favorite of all ever caught. The father of three daughters. Jim and his sister, and her son, who at the time was probably about 18 or 19, and then her friend, who was in her 30s. They were up on the cemetery on top of the hill at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And it's about 2:30 in the morning. So there are obviously no children around anywhere. But they got this EVP, and I wanted to play it, let you guys hear what it says, and then I wanted to get the impressions you got from it, because I know what I feel the first time and every time since that I've ever heard it. And it's, like I said, it's just real special to me, so I want to play this one for you and you to give your impressions of what you're feeling.
Now, as we said, Harpers Ferry is very noisy at night. You have influence of the noise, the railroad, the rivers. So on this tape, you're going to hear the noise sort of die off, and then you hear the EVP, and this is a real clear one. I don't have to, it's just a single word.
Oh, man. Oh, that'll break your heart.
And almost every time it brings me to tears.
That will break your heart. Oh, one more time, please.
Yeah.
She almost sounds like she's in a tunnel. You know what I mean? Like a cement, you know those things we used to play in a kid, the sewer tunnel tube things? Because it's got a little of an echo to it, does it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Now,
me personally, I think maybe the story that I see in my head when I hear that is she was her father, and she passed suddenly and doesn't know what's going on, and she's just looking for her daddy.
Uh-huh, absolutely.
Yes.
And this was in Harper's Ferry?
This is in Harper's Ferry.
Was this by a road? I can't picture Harper's Ferry in my head. It's so big. I don't know exactly where.
It was in the cemetery.
Okay.
There is a road that runs parallel to the cemetery, but it's a residential area, so it's not heavily trafficked, that particular road. And it's up above the town. You're sort of like up on top of the mountain, so to speak.
Oh, man. That'll break your heart.
Now, this one, I got in a private residence in a home in Kentucky. The guy was having all kind of stuff going on, and we got this, and he was renting the house. He moved out the next day.
Oh,
so I'm going to put this one for you. This is a really...
Oh, my gosh.
No, succubus or what? We're hearing pretty clear. So I love you, and I want you to be with me forever. And I don't know. He was having stuff going on, and this was actually going on in his bedroom. And he moved the hell out.
I don't blame him.
I'll play this one more time.
Oh, gosh. Yes, that's what it says. That's creepy.
Yeah, that one really got to him. Now, here's another, this one's pretty clear, too. This was in another private residence we did, and again, you'll see from the name it mentions it's an old style name. So Caleb loved me, and that's a real old style.
It is
name.
an old style name, yeah, like Malachi. Can you do that one more time?
Sure.
Wow.
And then this.
I'm sorry, I'm still shaking from the last one.
Right.
Yeah.
that I don't know that was such a nice person. I don't know if I would want that person to love me. But Caleb sounds like he'd be a nice one. Wow.
Yeah, that's no problem on that one. And then this, let's see. Oh, this is a more recent vintage. I think this is pretty cool. This is at Moundsville Prison, and we got a lot of. Anyhow, this is in the northern block, Moundsville Prison. I know I have it marked here. Jeez, Pete. How the hell am I going to know which?
Here, explain it out.
Okay, he's trying to find it for me. This in Moundsville Prison. Oh, thank. I'm.
He's technologically impaired.
He's pulling out. You know how it's.
Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club, Jim.
It's the one that. Do you want to see murder?
Oh, okay.
It might be all of these M's. Check these M's. Oh, here it is. Right. Yep. M20. Okay, I found it.
Okay.
This northern section of Moundsville Prison. That's where they kept the worst of the worst, and they kept them, from harming the other prisoners. And that area, they had their own little encircled area that they served lunch. They didn't get the lunch or have meals with the other prisoners. And it was they guarded the guards by this high chain link fence. All that said and done, there were a number of documented very brutal murders. They're horribly brutal murders, where they'd slice a man up from one side down the other in that area.
Mm.
And so they were working some of the jail cells, and I'm sitting. They have those tables like they have in lunchrooms in the schools. I'm sitting on one of those, and I'm just asking questions. And this is the EVP I got.
Jenny is talking right now.
Oh, man.
So that was, of course, me at the beginning, and you hear a bit of a twang, an accent in the person's voice. And I don't know if he was trying to shock me or whatever, but, given where it was, that doesn't sound like too neat of a guy.
Right. Do you want to see murder?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Moundsville, every time we've gone, it's different. It's like sometimes they want to communicate, and sometimes they're rather savage.
Right. Well, look at where they were and, what they went through. And, it's something that can scare you about that, too. I actually know that there's some mediums and psychics and what they call themselves in a lot of ways energy charmers. And I don't know how Haley feels about this, but they're against capital punishment for a very different reason, because when you electrocute somebody that's been like that or hang them, you basically are releasing all of that horrible negative energy into the universe in a quick zap,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right. And they're energy charmers, and they try to work with getting that person down. Let's get, what you did, get out. I mean, doesn't that sound just amazing that this kind of thing is going on? But you think about it, give it a chance to get that person down some, or let's work through it. But I guess there's some that, you can't do anything about, but what a different look at things. You're releasing all that into the universe. Bam.
Yeah, it's Moundsville. You just never quite know. Trying to pull this one up, I want to mention something too that I just started. I guess recently, last year, and we're continuing with this year. And I've actually talked to other investigators and found out some others are doing this as well. And this is with the Phasma box and the Tascam that I'm doing sessions at graves for information. And my wife's big into genealogy, and so we actually have gone to graves and where we're sort of hit a dead end with the lines and actually getting information.
Wow.
Like who's married to who and things like that, and sort of stating why we are there and if they can help us out. And again, not that you always get something, but we do get stuff a lot.
Well, I got stuck in my family tree, so maybe I can hire you to help me figure out where the rest of my people came from. That's amazing. Isn't that amazing?
And I'll tell you where I got started with this was that he runs a museum in the Moundsville area, and he's connected with he actually has a museum of the afterlife. He had inquired if I knew anybody who lived in Philadelphia that they might be able to get some ground from H.H. Holmes' grave. Last year there was a series on TV, American Ripper, where an ancestor of his was theorizing that he was Jack the Ripper and had some book blogs from boats. So they actually, at the end of all this, they actually got a order to exhume the body and do the DNA test. And he was there, and he was related. But anyhow, so they had reinterred him. It's in an unmarked grave, and the reinterment had been early in the spring, so the grass wasn't fully in. So my wife accompanied me. We went up there, and while I was going to get him a soil sample for his museum, I said, I'm going to take my Phasma box and just for the heck of it, see if I can make a connection. So I sit down on the lawn. You could tell he had two plots. He actually purchased two plot homes. So I get down on the ground. I've got my Phasma box. My wife's staying in the car. She's not having anything to do with this. So anyhow, I go, Mr. Holmes, H.H. Holmes, are you here? And almost immediately on my box, he goes, yes, it is I. I'm always here. And I'm like, what? So I sit down, and so I'm telling you, that was the most awkward interview I've ever. Well, how do you interview a mass murderer who killed children?
Unbelievable. Isn't that something?
And as I'm talking to him, a woman's voice comes in and says, you're just a monster. And she came in, and a woman's buried in front of him. I don't know if that was her or not, but a woman's voice came and said, you're a monster. And I'm asking him if he has regrets, and he says a few. And anyhow, it was a remarkable 45 minutes.
Wow.
And I recorded all this, and I contacted the gentleman who did the show. I said, I don't know where you stand on all of this or what you believe, but I said, I actually had a pretty amazing session with what I think is your relative. And if you'd like to get together sometime, I'll be glad to play you the tape I have and stuff. So we actually have plans in the future to get together. But that sort of opened the door, and I hadn't really considered that before.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I did see the show. I did. I remember her name. Her name was Amaryllis. That was her name. She was fabulous. What a wonderful woman she was. But I did see it. Yeah.
It's a stunning cemetery. It's one of those large with all kinds of beautiful sculptures. And like I said, they've interred him in a concrete seal, and it is unmarked. I did have some points and see, but the big thing was being able to see the grass not grown. And I guess here's the one. Before we cut the EVPs for the night, I thought this is a really great one. There was a home here in Chambersburg, and the people living there were having all kind of activity, including kinetic activity. And Dave and I go up there, and we're doing an initial walkthrough, and we're hooking up. And this little boy, he literally locked up our equipment. I'm amazed at this. He locked up all my stuff, and I'm like, and actually was being a problem. And I said, wait a minute. I said, this file isn't full. It's brand new. And when I went to play it back, he come over. I mean, I didn't even record him. He recorded himself.
Wow.
You'll hear he's saying basically he's trying for the light.
Now, when this was captured, I just finished setting up the DVR cameras, and I immediately got a migraine, and that's kind of Jim's barometer. If I walk into a place and I start popping a migraine, Jim knows it's going to be a good night. So Jim and his nephew Sean were in the upstairs bathroom on the west end of the house, with the door shut, and they started this recording session. And I was down in the main level with the parents and their young son, who did not know my daughter's name, any of our names really. He was maybe 5 or 6, and he was standing right next to me. He hadn't opened his mouth. They were in the kitchen getting me some ibuprofen. So we got this child screaming so loud that it drowns out Jim and his nephew talking. The child in the house at the time was standing right next to me, and I can vouch it wasn't him.
So he's going to play this one for you. Rose, are you cold and lost? Rose, are you cold and lost? So we're on an over list, and we're getting all this Rose and this stuff, and this kid's screaming, and we don't hear it, and my recorders had all locked up and recorded this.
Oh, can you play that one more time?
Yeah.
Rose, are you cold and lost?
Oh my gosh.
Rose, are you?
Well, here's the part that really creeps me out, and what creeps me out. But after you hear him yell, "I'm trying for the light," the
Yeah.
next word he screams is Bronwyn.
Say it.
Bronwyn is my oldest daughter's name.
Oh my.
Yeah. We still haven't told her that yet.
Oh my.
And the really neat thing is, when we were trying to hook up to get over to his house, we couldn't even make a phone call. Something was interfering with our phones, trying to talk to one another. We couldn't get a call through.
Wow.
The call would shut off as if, you know how when you're on your cell phone and it drops the call?
Right.
It was that, but with a landline.
Wow.
With lines. It was just dropping them. And I finally had to meet him in church and set up when we could not get a phone call through. And there was an old man in this house, a ghost of an old man who was basically, I don't know if he was scaring the child, but he was interfering with the child, passing over. And the child later, we had another EVP from him saying, "My daddy loves me." And so, anyhow, when we got this, we called the people the next day. I said, "How were things last night after we left?" The little boy was running up and down the stairs all night. They heard him running up and down. And then I had Janet working on as a remote viewer, and I had a few others. I had 4 remote viewers working at passing this young boy through.
Good.
We went back, it was like 3 weeks later, and he's gone. And he was gone.
Blessings.
We
Blessings.
did another follow-up, too. So he did pass over. But, I mean, I've never had, I mean, he is so clear and succinct. And he literally locked up our equipment, and my son was with us that night. He was 2 rooms over and picked him up on his recorder.
That's amazing.
He was ready to go. I mean, he wanted to go.
He wanted to go. Bless his heart. And thank goodness that you guys saw through, and that's what I'm talking about. You followed through, and you got somebody to help that poor child cross.
My only question is, why would she yell my daughter's name?
I don't know. Because he's maybe, you know, he knew you had young children at home. Because they know.
Did you vote?
And said basically, you know, he's connecting into it. It's like, you know, naming your kids to go, look, you got kids. I'm trying to get to the light. Help me. You know, I mean, that's my guess. I don't know. Haley, what do you think?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Trying to put it on my, okay. What I think from that is that he knew, Dave, that you are surrounded by the light.
Yep.
You have, I think, a lot of instances where I've heard from Jim and also I've seen now from the Healing Nation, you're drawn to those darker things that can do easier, that you are surrounded by light.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that. Your children are completely in the light.
Mm-hmm.
He is thirsty for it. So he's going to save her because he wants to help him, period. Like you would help her. He wants you to see him on that level. You are like his daughter. He is a little boy, and he just wants to find the light.
Yep.
That's all he wanted to do. He found it. He's good. But it took you guys, it took a special team to be able to see that, to recognize it, and to help him pass through.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's nothing scary at all, to the point. I mean, if you can pull yourself out of it that he wasn't really there and he's a ghost, it's not scary at all. It's exactly like she said. He connected into your light, saw you had little girls, little children, and going, I'm just like them. You know, he's naming the name because he wanted you to help him like you would help yours. That's absolutely the same feeling I got. Spot on, Haley.
And you know, as a little aside to that, a really neat thing. This child so wanting to recognize on that the parents there, they had taken their child's artwork, the little colorings, and they had actually put it in a frame and hung it on the wall, with a little figure that they'd drawn.
Right.
They came down, they noticed, here the frame is still on the wall, picture has been flipped.
Wow.
In frame.
Wow.
I'm like, was that amazing?
Yes.
I mean, he had that kind of power.
Yeah. And, he sounded like a very determined little boy, and he got what he wanted. And the cool part about these things is if you ever get hooked up with somebody who gets a message of someone that you helped cross, and they come back and then they say, I'm the one you crossed, thank you. Because now they can speak it. They can get clearer. And I'll tell you, when that happens, you're not going to help, but your tears are going to stream down your face, because I've had that happen to me, and it's just absolutely amazing. So I have a feeling you haven't heard the last of him. I think he's going to, once he gets all straightened out, he'll find a way to come back and let you know. That's a powerful little spirit there.
Wasn't it? I mean, oh my gosh,
it's wonderful. That
was a neat experience.
Well, I'll tell you guys, I don't think you're going to be able to top that, but I bet you can. And we're definitely going to have to cut. This isn't going to be the first time last time you've been on. You've got to come back and bring me more of these and more of your adventures and the things that you've found out. This has been absolutely fabulous. Do you believe we're 2.5 hours? It feels like 15 minutes.
I say we cut, and that's why we wanted to play this. I know, it's great.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Please, before I forget, tell everybody again where they can connect everything from the YouTube all the way through. One more time.
Well, we have our Keystone State Paranormal Society Facebook page. You can find us at capital KSPS lowercase investigate on Instagram. Twitter is Keystone_paranormal. Search for our YouTube channel, which is the Keystone State Paranormal Society YouTube. And as soon as we know when our website, which will be www.keystotheunknown.com, when that goes live, we'll post that on our Facebook page as well.
Awesome. And I highly recommend that you catch those Thursday night lives. Again, the people that are in there, it's wonderful to be part of the conversation. Last night, I was walking on air when I saw that just one of my stories had triggered all of these people coming through saying, yes, when I saw my mother a visitation of my mother or my grandfather or my child, whoever, after they crossed, they were so much better and they were beautiful and the pain was gone. And, we can learn so much if you just open your heart and your mind. We can learn so much from the dead about living. And I appreciate you guys, coming on and sharing so much of your time with my listeners. And if I know that Jim joined today on the Gatekeepers, Haley, I hope you will come on Journey Through the Gate, Paranormal Portal Podcast, Gatekeepers, on our page on Facebook, and join in the conversation and help others with questions. Would you like that? Would you come on and be part of that?
I would love that. I definitely will.
Please come in. And, again, it's psychic development. It's helping people with questions. It's just reaching out, They say there's no paranormal unity, but I think after all this time and last night, I think we found a little bit here. And isn't that just awesome?
Well, it's great meeting you. I really thank you so much, Cisco. Last night and tonight, it's really been wonderful to exchange ideas and stories and
like-mindedness.
The vast majority of all this, nothing scary about any of this. It's just
there's more to fear from the living than there is from the dead.
That's who I'm afraid of.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for coming on, every one of you, your stories again. And we're going to do this every, couple of months, if you don't mind. Come on back on and tell us what you find and play us some more EVPs. Does that sound cool?
We're introducing Haley into the Bel Air house end of next month. So
wow.
we'll have a whole picture that now. We
I'm
got
so
Chris.
excited.
I know.
Yeah, we have.
I'm really,
her,
really
so-
trying to get to Gettysburg. I want to get there for the bash. If I don't get there for the bash, we are definitely getting together to do something else, because I've got some unfinished work there. I mean, I think you could sit there every day for the next 20 years and not, make a dent. But by golly, I'm going to try.
All right. Well, listen. Your best of health and everything to you, and it's still fun.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave, Jim, Haley. Thank you again. And just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you.
for having us. You have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Sisto. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you, Haley.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you again to Keystone State Paranormal Society for joining us tonight. We had a wonderful conversation. Their EVPs, their information, their insight, everything was just mind-blowing and just felt so comfortable at the same time. So that will not be the last time you hear Keystone State Paranormal on this show. They will be back. All their links will be in the show notes. Make sure you check those out. And, of course, if you have your own stories, journeythroughthegate@gmail.com. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to keep my feet under the covers. And I'm going to keep my closet door shut. Because there are things that go bump in the night.